All right, welcome everybody to the Jim Acosta Show. It is Wednesday. Trump says it's Liberation Day, and yet Trump is still president. It's also Wisconsin Hangover Day for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And as you can see, joining me on the program today is Mallory McMorrow. She's a state senator in Michigan, and just this morning, she announced she is running for the U.S. Senate in that state. Mallory, it's great to see you. Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. And hi, everybody. I see everybody hopping on. Good to see everybody who's joining this afternoon.
And this is your first Substack live, correct? You've done this
It
in other forums.
is. Yeah. They've done this on Instagram, but this is my first Substack, so I'm glad to be doing it with you.
Well, as you were noticing a few moments ago, there are folks who are going to chime in. They're going to say stuff. There are hearts flowing up in your direction. So this is all good. But it turns out the cheese head doesn't always fit if you wear it for Elon Musk. Mallory, case in point, he spent $25 million on the state Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. That's a lot of beer and brats. If he had just spent the money on beer and brats, maybe they might have done a little bit better in Wisconsin. But we don't want to give him any ideas. Susan Crawford won that race. The Wisconsin Supreme Court will retain its progressive majority. I know you're Michigan, but this was a highly important race because Elon Musk, who has just come onto the scene at basically like a Category 5 hurricane, whatever natural disaster comparison you want to make, and he's done a lot of damage to the federal government, done a lot of damage, I think, to the political discourse in this country, to elections, trying to pump $25 million into a race. I do want to talk about Michigan for a moment, but just your reaction to Wisconsin.
It's incredible for
Yeah.
Wisconsin. I have a lot of love for Ben Wickler and the Wisconsin Dems. As a Michigander, we always we hold them very close as fellow Midwesterners, and they've done great work over there. There's an account that I follow on Instagram, a woman in Wisconsin, called Motherhood for Good, and I love her visualizations. She stacked up her baby's blocks to show, like, look, across the board, I don't think most people will disagree. We need to get money out of politics, but to understand the scope of, comparing George Soros versus, and she starts stacking block after block after block after block, and then starting another row,
Yeah.
$25 million into a state Supreme Court race, on top of just, blatantly violating every ethical norm and treating voters like they can be bought. I'm going to
Yeah.
come in and I'm going to give out these $1 million checks. And it's just a disgusting abuse of our democratic system. And we're really proud of Wisconsin voters today for saying, no, we can't be bought. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, this is on us.
Yeah, and I mean, there were also those Florida congressional races. Those candidates did not win those seats, but they seriously carved into Trump's margin of victory that he had last November. It shows that the Democrats are energized. Is that part of the reason why you announced this morning to sort of maybe hop on that wave you were hoping and maybe counting on Wisconsin to turn out the way it did? Let's talk about that. Was there any connection there?
There wasn't, but,
Okay.
I am a firm believer that things happen for a reason, that you cannot deny the momentum and the energy from Wisconsin to Cory Booker's marathon 25-hour
Yeah.
speech on the Senate floor to our announcement this morning, and it feels like the tide is turning, and I've been feeling this on the ground in Michigan now for many weeks, where we've
Hmm.
seen people show up at town halls and coffee hours in droves, not only asking what I can do, but what they can do. They're putting their hand
Interesting.
up and they're saying, "Put me in, coach." And that is the energy that we need right now. It's not just enough for Donald Trump and Elon Musk to be stepping in it. This is our opportunity to step into this void and present a new vision for voters to take us out of this mess.
And you're the majority whip in the state senate in Michigan. You went viral. I remember talking to you back on my old show back in 2022 when you made that stand for LGBTQ rights. Everybody was very proud of you when you did that. You really sort of came onto the scene in the Democratic Party at that point. And one of the things that you've been talking about lately is sort of, maybe I'm describing it wrong. Please correct me if I'm doing that wrong. But you want to see a new generation of leadership sort of come up in the Democratic Party right now. Perhaps that's a little bit of what we saw yesterday with Cory Booker. Who knows what that's going to lead to down the road? But it seems like that's what you're driving at right now.
That's right. And to be very clear, this is not about one person. It's not even about one vote in the CR, for example. I think
Yeah.
most Michiganders probably couldn't tell you what a CR is.
Yeah.
But
I did
we
want to talk
have
about that, but yeah,
we have to recognize
yeah,
this is a very different moment in time than the reality that Senator Schumer came up in, even President Biden. This is no longer the Republican Party. This is the MAGA Party. Trump has
mm,
remade this party completely in his image that prioritizes one thing and one thing only, and it is tearing government and institutions down to the studs in their image while they support themselves. So, it is frustrating to me. And I had a constituent say to me, Mallory, it feels like Democrats and Republicans are sitting down to play chess. And the Republicans have flipped the table over and lit the house on fire. And
yeah,
Democrats are still sitting at the table planning our next move. So when we
yeah,
hear remarks like, well, their popularity is going down and their polling numbers are declining, and we'll just get them in the midterms.
yeah.
That's not enough for most voters, and it's not enough for me either. So it requires a new generation of leadership who has kind of come up in this moment, who
Yeah.
understands what we're dealing with and who knows how to respond to it.
Yeah, I like the chess analogy. I sometimes feel like Donald Trump is eating the chess pieces, though. But I mean,
That's,
that,
yeah.
maybe Elon Musk is using them in a slingshot. I don't know. But, and in this case, it just boomeranged in his face. But let's talk about you. We mentioned the CR, and I get it. Michiganders, I'm from Virginia. A lot of folks, all Northern Virginia, they probably know what a CR is, but a lot of Virginians probably don't know what a CR is. But at the same time, I know you had some misgivings, or you weren't exactly on board with the way Chuck Schumer handled that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, look, in Michigan, our Senate delegation split on the vote,
Yeah,
where Senator Gary Peters voted in favor of the continuing resolution, and Senator Alyssa Slotkin, our new senator, voted against. And I think you could maybe justify both sides when I heard Senator Schumer explaining that if Donald Trump's ultimate goal is to shut down the government, then if you're giving him that, it makes it very hard to bring departments back online. However, what Senator Slotkin said was that she had asked for guarantees that Elon Musk and DOGE would not continue to fire people at will, and that if they appropriated dollars, that there would be a guarantee that those dollars would be used as intended by the Congress.
mm,
And because
mm,
she did not get those guarantees in the negotiation, she voted no. So that I think is where I likely would have fallen, because otherwise you're just handing them the keys to the kingdom to keep doing what they're doing with no recourse until September.
yeah.
And even if voting in favor of the continuing resolution was the right move, you got to get out there ahead of that. You got to talk to people. You got to meet voters and treat them with respect.
Yeah.
People are plugged in and they're paying attention, and they want to hear why you're making the decisions that you're making and what you are going to do to protect them.
And being in Michigan, I know that these tariffs that Trump is about to announce, he's about to announce them while we're on. And we'll get some of the details, I suppose, as they come out. But with him, when he does these tariffs, that's sort of a moving target. One day he'll announce tariffs, and then we'll find out a day or two later there are carve outs. And of course, he has people from various countries and companies and so on going to him. In some cases on bended knee, looking for relief in some of the cases with those tariffs. And I'm going to talk about this with Eric Swalwell and Molly Jong-Fast a little later in the program. But Senator, in your view, what's the special sauce here? What's the right formula? I know some folks in Michigan agree with some level of tariffs when it comes to certain areas, perhaps in the automotive industry, to protect jobs. What do you think?
Yeah, right now the approach is chaotic. That is the only way to
Yeah,
describe it. And in a place like Michigan that is so heavily based in the automotive industry, we have been hurt by trade policy that has encouraged jobs in manufacturing to move out of the country.
yeah,
So there is a world in which if there are targeted narrow tariffs that help bring some of those jobs back into Michigan, maybe there's a plant that brings on a third or fourth shift that has been idle.
yeah,
That would be a good thing. But when you pair it with, this isn't targeted narrow tariffs.
yeah.
This is tariffs on everyone and on everything, it seems like. And I'm hearing from voters who cannot comprehend why we would be at a trade war with Canada. I mean, you cross the
Yeah,
border between Detroit and Canada, that's just a city next door. That is
right.
not, it is mind-boggling to people. So people are going to feel this in their pockets and in their budgets in a really big negative way. And it feels like the approach from the Trump administration is stealing from Elon Musk, we're going to bring in a tech approach of move fast and break things. They're going to break a lot of things in the process. And that's not the thoughtful approach that we need to bring jobs back
Yeah.
without hurting people's budgets.
Well, and there are the unintended consequences and intended consequences. I mean, the New York Times was reporting just today that now there's just a great deal of uncertainty over at the Federal Reserve and what the chairman, Jay Powell, is going to do about interest rates. And there was a lot of hope at the beginning of the Trump administration because of the trajectory at the end of the Biden administration that maybe inflation was getting to a point where interest rates could start coming down, people could start buying houses again, and now that's just like poof, that's sort of gone. And you've got Goldman Sachs and other places saying, not a bad, I mean, decent chance that we will have a recession. That is, I mean, that tells you what all of this has caused just in the short term. Who knows what happens 6 months to a year from now?
That's right.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of people who said they've been waiting to buy a house. And the
Yep.
longer they wait, housing prices have doubled from 2019 even to now. So they were
Exactly.
really hoping and waiting for those mortgage rates to come down. And now they look at it like that is just a pipe dream that you cannot even think about anymore. And that's devastating for people who thought we were almost there.
Yeah. Well, and for folks, I just saw somebody saying Trump is on TV. I'm turning it off. Welcome to the Jim Acosta Show, and we have State Senator Mallory McMorrow with me. She's running for the U.S. Senate, and I do want to end our discussion talking about Cory Booker because what and we can talk about anything else if you want in the time that we have left. I don't want to hold you up. I know you've been doing a lot of hits, but I thought, there might be folks out there who will say, well, how important is a senator's speech? Yes, he went 25 hours. Yes, he broke the record. Yes, he broke Strom Thurmond's record, and there's a lot of significance there, and that's all well and good. But gosh, it's a senator. They're not in the majority, but there was something inspiring about it, and it felt good to see somebody say, you know what, I'm just going to throw myself on the line here. I'm just going to put myself out there in a dramatic way because I'm just so pissed off. I'm so upset about what I'm seeing right now.
I think that's exactly right. This
Yeah,
is a moment when people are looking for their leaders to do something,
yeah,
anything. And I think most people acknowledge, yes, we know that Democrats are not in the majority in the Senate. We know that Democrats are not in the majority in the Congress. But
yeah,
just coming to a podium to tell people we can't do anything because we're in the minority is not enough. Because if
yeah,
you are one of the most powerful people in the country and you can't do anything, then the average person sitting at home watching feels like, well, I can't do anything either.
yeah.
So I really appreciated Cory Booker, took to his social account, he pre-recorded a video where he explained why he was about to take to the floor. He said, I have heard loud and clear from my residents who want me to do more. And if this inspires any of you to stand up and use your voice, then that's worth doing. There's also something just absolutely poetic about how long change takes, that he was very intentional about beating Strom Thurmond's record and talking
Absolutely.
about the reason he is there as a senator is because
Hmm.
of civil rights and against this man who stood on the Senate floor to
Yeah.
prevent people like him from having rights. So I loved that he came to the floor not just yammering for 25
Hmm.
hours. It was, 1,600 pages of thoughtful, prepared information about the Constitution, about what Donald
Yeah.
Trump was doing to strip the Constitution, with constituent phone calls and emails and stories. He was uplifting people's voices and
Yeah.
giving voice to the voiceless. And I think that's just so powerful in a moment where people want to know that their voice matters. Seeing somebody who does have a position of power using it in a
Yeah.
way that will inspire more people to stand up.
Yeah. And Mallory, I mean, my sense about you, and you feel free to just throw something at me and say, Jim, you're way off here. And it has something to do with what Cory Booker was doing yesterday. There was sort of an optimism and a hopefulness
Yeah.
to his speech. And I don't want to call it Pollyannish or naivete. I don't mean it like that, but just sort of like almost like kind of back to a Jimmy Stewart sort of time of innocence. I don't know. And I know that that time is all Hollywood made up poppycock. But I get the sense, listening to you, Mallory, and following your career over the years, that I think you're a millennial. You would describe yourself as a millennial. You are not sort of like depressed, down in the dumps, defeated, feeling defeated about the world. And you are an optimistic person. And in addition to needing younger people getting into the process, we need optimistic people. I call myself a foolish optimist. Are you kind of also in that category?
Yeah,
Can you give us
you
that
have to
sense of
be.
who you are? Yeah.
Yeah, Senator Booker said something in his 25-hour marathon speech yesterday. He said, "If America hasn't made you cry, you don't love it enough." And I thought that was
Yeah.
so beautiful, to
Yeah.
recognize there is a lot of ugliness. There's a lot of reason to look at whether it's the results of the 2024 election or the fact that people are still to this day being targeted and demonized and marginalized that can make you give up. But in our country, you don't give up and that it
Yeah.
is possible to make change. And the beautiful thing about living in this country and in a democracy is it is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that can be really hard to accept, but it's true. I'm somebody in the wake of the 2016 election, I
Yeah.
Googled how to run for office.
Wow.
So anybody watching right now who doesn't know where to start anywhere,
Did you
literally
get an
anywhere.
answer when you Googled
I
that?
did. I found an organization called Emerge America, which recruits and trains Democratic women to run for
Yeah.
office. And I put in an application and I went through a 6-month training program and I started to find my footing and my voice and learned how powerful it was. And, I ran for office in 2018 against a Republican incumbent. Nobody thought we had a chance. And we flipped a district and then I became a state
Wow.
senator. And now, on this day, we are running for US Senate and trying to bring that optimism and that hope, even as dark as things are,
Mm.
to Michigan and to the rest of the country at a time when we need it. So I would encourage anybody watching, learn more. It's at McMorrowforMichigan.com. Come join us. This is a massive battleground state and a journey ahead, but this is something I hope people want to be part of with me.
Excellent. Well, Mallory, thank you very much. Very well said. I won't make you talk for 24 hours or 25 hours, but I appreciate you coming on. And you do have a battle. I mean, it is going to be a battle to win that Senate seat. So you certainly have your work cut out for you. But thank you so much for taking time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
It goes fast. All right. We'll do it again soon, hopefully. Take
Sounds
care. Good
good.
luck. Okay. Bye. That was Mallory McMorrow, the state senator from Michigan, running for the U.S. Senate seat in Michigan. I'm trying to bring in Eric Swalwell now. Again, it's Jim touching the equipment. Who knows what's going to happen? Will it work out? We just hope it will work out. Adding Eric Swalwell, the congressman from California, very fiery, loves to lock horns with MAGA. That's why I enjoy talking to him as much as possible. Been trying to get him on the program for some time now, and we'll let the Substack machine do its work. The wheels are turning inside the Substack machine, but apparently, right now, Donald Trump is announcing his tariff plan. And you might be tempted to say, oh, I should go watch that on TV right now. But he's just going to change his plan within the next 24 to 48 hours. And there's Eric Swalwell right there. Good to see you, Congressman. Thanks for coming
Hey,
on.
Jim, what's happening?
We made this work.
Yes, that's my first one.
Is this your first one? That's terrific. Excellent.
I told my team, I said, let's do it on the stack. And they said, no one calls it the stack, sir. Stop calling it the stack. So,
We try to
yeah,
sound cool and it doesn't work. It's
well,
okay. I know.
yeah, that's
But
right.
it's good to see you as always. You're a fighter. I always enjoy talking to the fighters. Mallory McMorrow was just on. She's got a fight ahead of her. And Trump is doing this tariff announcement right now. I hate to start there, but it's sort of in the news. My sense of it is that whatever he says right, it's not even worth watching. Whatever he says right now, he's going to change. It's like it's like nailing paint to a wall. It just ain't going to happen. But what do you think about all that? I mean, there's a lot. It's creating so much economic uncertainty. You've got Goldman Sachs saying we got maybe a third of a chance of going into a recession. He doesn't seem to know what he's doing. It's just sort of because he's been talking about it for 20 years, he wants to do it.
I was just meeting with actually a distributor of healthcare products who told me, look, we're getting ready for what this is, but it doesn't help anybody who's in the hospital, doesn't help any patient, doesn't help anyone who's going to go to the pharmacy, because
Yeah.
so much of what goes into keeping us healthy and well is made overseas. And the way I see it, Jim, of course I would love to make as much as we can in America. In
Yeah,
fact, that's what the
absolutely.
CHIPS Act that President Biden had invested in the
Hmm.
IRA and the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. That's what that was driving towards. But this, I mean, this is a Trump tax where we're all going to pay. And the other part of it is, as you pointed out, it's just chaotic because and it's disorienting, it's dizzying, and American businesses are trying to make long term, especially small and medium sized businesses who don't have big law firms and big compliance departments. They have to price in these tariffs and make decisions, and then he's just so schizophrenic about it that
Yeah.
it's really hard to do.
Well, but he wants to change the subject. He doesn't want to talk about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Elon Musk went up there, spent $25 million, put a cheesehead on. As I said earlier in the program, you could put it, if the cheesehead fits, it doesn't. You shouldn't always wear it. But what's interesting about this is that Elon Musk bought his way into the White House. He spent $290 million during that campaign, and it appears to be failing spectacularly. I spoke with a longtime Trump advisor, just a little while ago, who basically said Musk has reached his sell-by date. Do you expect that we won't be seeing much of him very much longer when it comes to working in the Trump administration? What do you think?
Yeah, we're feeling the effects of the long tail on what DOGE has done
Yeah.
to retirement security, healthcare security, firing
Oh yeah.
FAA employees, bird flu monitors as egg prices go up. I think Americans are awakening to just how much this is impacting them, and they're not going away. And
Yeah.
in fact, this day of action this weekend in communities across America, they're only going to be louder about how protected they want to be. And so Trump, if anything, he understands and gets public sentiment, and he's starting to see how unpopular Elon Musk is. What was
Yeah.
encouraging though about Wisconsin was the voters there made a clear statement that democracy is not for sale. Whatever you
Yeah.
think you did in that last election with nearly $300 million, that we're not going to be bought. And again, it may have been a fool me once endeavor. That we were not so aware of how corrosive it is to our democracy for somebody to spend that much money, but it was diminishing returns for him in
Yeah.
Wisconsin. And but Jim, the problem with that, when you have someone like Elon Musk who's willing to spend so much money, and then you have Donald Trump who's willing to issue executive orders that make it hard to vote and get to the ballot box, it
Yep.
creates among my colleagues this invincibility complex where you're not seeing accountability by Republicans in Congress because they think, well, Donald Trump, I'm not gonna lose my job because of what he's doing, because one, he's gonna make it harder for people to vote me out with what he's doing with his executive
Yep.
orders on elections. And then even if that doesn't work, Elon Musk is going to backstop, any threat to me by just investing millions of dollars in my race. And so they just figure, why would I speak up if I've got these, two insurance policies? And that is very dangerous for the country to
Yeah.
have that mindset in the Congress.
Well, and you're absolutely right about the effect DOGE has had. And one of the scary things is, and I've heard this from a number of Democrats in recent days, they've worried that, he's going to do so much damage to the federal government, to places like HHS, to places like NIH, the CDC, that it's going to be hard to put things back together
Yeah.
again. And it may not be permanent damage, but it'll be sustained damage, and it will be difficult to dig our way out of. God forbid we have a pandemic or something like that.
I spoke with the father of a little girl from my district a couple weeks ago who told me that his 7-year-old daughter, for most of her life, had suffered through 40 seizures a day, and that just last year they were able to get into an NIH funded clinical trial.
Yeah.
And it brought it down to one seizure a day. And he said, like, her life is different. Like, she can
Wow.
enjoy school in a way that she had not before. He said, our lives as parents was different. Like, we could,
Wow.
actually have careers and a social life. And then because of the DOGE cuts, he said that that funding was put at risk, and her treatment, was taken away, and so she's back to 40 seizures a day, and that's the consequence of these cuts. It's little girls who are going to suffer because their health care is just not going to be there, and it's
Yeah.
only going to get worse if they take from Medicaid to give to
Yep.
billionaire tax cuts, which is coming in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the Republicans are going to try to, figure out a way to get these Trump tax cuts extended, and they want to do it on the back of cutting Medicaid, slashing Medicaid to the extent that you could have rural hospitals that are deeply affected by. I've talked about this on my show numerous times. People don't realize that Medicaid helps prop up a lot of hospitals in a lot of far-flung places, and it sort of reminds me of the terrorists. It's just a sort of MAGA doing it to themselves. Has anybody been to a small town where basically the only place to shop is a Walmart? Most of that stuff comes from China.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen to all those prices? They're going to go up. And so I guess, Eric, Congressman, one of the things I wanted to ask
Eric,
you,
please. Yeah.
I know, as a little, but one of the things, how do you communicate, how do you penetrate through the information bubble that people are in to get that message across? I'm trying to do it here. I let out an occasional F bomb and stuff like that here. I say
Yeah.
stuff that pisses off Fox because I hope they put it on Fox. And I want to try to penetrate those. How do you
Yeah.
do it? How do we get through? Because maybe they just have to live through it and understand it.
So I have a couple rules for myself, and if anyone asks for advice, that I'll give to others, which is in messaging, tell me a story or bore me. Like if we're not rooting our message, into a story, we're
Yeah,
going to lose people because we vote for people, not policies. And in every
good point.
religion, every political party, every leader, their assent is rooted in a story. And so we need to be better storytellers.
Yeah.
Another rule that I tell folks is always be on, meaning, and you're doing this, with Substack. And by the way, I'm so just proud as someone who knows you that
Oh, thank you.
you are muscling through what many journalists are not able to do right now in this new era. But you are always on now with
Yeah.
Substack, and you're going to places that vertical media were not able to reach. And if you go back, I think to the 2024 election, with Kamala Harris, one of the biggest critiques that anyone made of her was when she was asked on The View, what would she do differently?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jim, we made as candidates, we all make mistakes. And she
Yep.
ran an almost pitch perfect campaign. But it wouldn't be for a couple more days before she was in another interview. And what I learned from that experience, the difference with Donald Trump was he would make five mistakes an hour, right? I mean, he fucks up all the time, but
He's
he's
doing it right
always
now. But anyway,
on.
yeah.
So yeah, so he's always
Yeah.
on. And by always being on, you have, I think, more control to tell the story and define your priorities before they're defined
Mm,
against you. And so I think we have to be
good point.
better at that. I'll give you an example of something I'm doing, just kind of going
Yeah.
outside my comfort zone. A Pew Research report showed that after the 2024 election, that 68% of Americans who voted identify as Christian in one way or another. And I told my staff after that report, I said, why don't you find the top 20 Christian podcasts
Hmm,
and start booking me on those podcasts? And I'm a Christian, but I just hate that,
sure.
my faith, or just my party is defined by Republicans as it relates to faith, in that I'm not in the arena talking about it myself. And so every week I've been doing a Christian podcast. So going to a space that Democrats typically aren't
Good for
comfortable
you.
going to. Many of us who are, Christian, we just don't wear it on our political sleeve. I think because we don't like how Republicans use it, as a means to power. But I'm not going to be defined by that anymore. So I
Mm.
think that's one example of what we can do, to go to more places, be in more spaces, to get, our values out there.
Well, and you mentioned Christianity. I am also a Christian, and to me, one of the things that steams my shorts about the way in the GOP on the far right they cast aspersions on Democrats and folks in the media as if we're godless
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, America has become a country, it seems, Congressman, where it's okay now to disappear people. That appears to be what's happening in the Trump. How is that Christian? The
And
case
how
of
does that
Kilmar Abrego
mesh with
Garcia. Go ahead.
yeah, how does that mesh with the story of the weary traveler, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the lesson of the good Samaritan? It doesn't, Jim. And we can't be okay with it. And it's not just that they're disappearing, these individuals who have a right to be here. they're just lying about it. I mean, JD Vance's tweet yesterday
Oh my
to
God.
I think John from Pod Save America, saying that this individual is a convict is just not true. But they're
That
just
was a
so
lie.
willing to lie about it,
Yeah.
and that's the same thing we saw with Signalgate, right? Like they're willing to gaslight us and then just outright just continue to gaslight us.
Yeah.
They made this reckless mistake, and then when they were called on it, they just lied through it.
Yeah. The AP reports that his young autistic son has sought comfort in the scent of his father's missing clothes. This is what the AP
Mm.
reports. His wife says, although he cannot speak, this is talking about their son, he shows me how much he missed Kilmar. He has been finding Kilmar's work shirts and smelling them to smell
Mm.
Kilmar's familiar scent. He has been crying and acting out more than usual. I mean, this is godless. This is not Christian. This is not
There's
Christianity.
no act of faith in doing
Nothing.
something like this. And
Correct.
if you, and by the way, Jim, if you do believe that this person is a member of a gang, prove it, show it. Like we're a country
Yeah.
of rules and due process, and again, to just disappear somebody, and then to admit uh, well, we made a mistake, but we're not going to do
Yeah.
anything about it. Also,
Yeah.
just unacceptable.
Unreal. And I don't want to hold you up. I'll let you go in a second. I did want to ask you very quickly. I saw a video that you made mocking the idea that Trump would run for a third term, and you're basically like, "Good luck with that." Things aren't going so well right now. You don't sound worried about that, or what?
Well, as I said, it's not as if he's knocking it out of the park in this second term. I mean, it's a Trump
Yeah.
slump, shit show, disaster. So
Yeah.
nobody right now is asking, when you're sitting at 40-ish% approval rating, nobody's asking you for a third term.
Yeah.
But what I think is interesting, we had a hearing yesterday in the Judiciary Committee, and this just shows that public sentiment is working against him. And so to your viewers and your followers, I just say this: stay in it. Do not give up. It can seem crushing, the era that we're in, but public sentiment is working. And I want to give you a couple examples.
Yeah.
Yesterday in the Judiciary Committee, there was a hearing on essentially impeaching judges because Trump has been going after these judges who are ruling against him, even if they're
Yeah.
Republican appointed judges or a Trump appointed judge. This hearing was set a couple weeks ago. In the hearing, only one Republican, and it's the one who introduced the articles of impeachment, to raise money, even suggested we should be impeaching judges. No one else wanted to touch the hot stove. And Newt Gingrich, who was their witness, said, I don't think we should be impeaching judges. So I think we have created a hot stove on this
Yeah.
issue that they don't want to touch. And so that just shows me we have to make Trump's desires, like what he wants to do to our democracy, so undesirable, so unpalatable, so undemocratic that they don't touch it. It's the same thing with the tax cuts, for the billionaires. They're now talking about maybe raising, taxes on the
Yeah.
wealthiest Americans. They're not doing that because it's the right thing. It's because we are speaking up. And so I
Mm.
think, Jim, our
Interesting.
small victories will lead to big victories. Small victories that we get fighting inside the Congress, whether it was like that on the Judiciary Committee yesterday or Cory Booker in 25 hours on the Senate floor.
Yeah.
Small victories in Wisconsin, as we had last evening. Let's get some bigger victories in Virginia and New Jersey in the governor's races later this year. And then if we have the electoral infrastructure by going to the courts and having those Democratic states max out democracy, we can win the midterms next November and cut our time in hell in half.
Well, we'll see how that all plays out. I mean, it is I think it's a very plausible scenario. And I always enjoy talking with you, Eric. It's great to
Same
see
here, Jim.
you. And I felt like we just got going here at the end, but let's keep
Yeah,
doing it. Let's get you on back again as soon as possible. But great to talk to you.
you too. All
All
right.
right,
See you,
Congressman
pal.
Eric Swalwell, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. I'm going to add in Molly Jong-Fast because we've got a lot to talk about with Molly Jong-Fast. There is so much happening on this Wednesday afternoon. We had Mallory McMorrow on earlier. She's launched her race for the Senate. Eric Swalwell came on. Just terrific in terms of, I don't know if there's a theme here today, but there's been some optimism, I think, expressed by both um, Mallory McMorrow, and Eric Swalwell. And so let's just try to keep this going here. We're waiting for Molly to come in to the Substack machine, the wheels of the Substack machine. They churn slowly, but they churn towards good TV, I hope. I don't know. I'm just making it up as I go along here. But apparently, Trump is announcing these tariffs right now as we wait for Molly to come in. He's apparently unveiled a 10% tariff on all U.S. trading partners, with more to come, he says, for the worst offenders. That is just coming in now from NBC News. And the tariff package, obviously, I mean, one of the things that folks should be keeping a lookout for is, I'm just going to tell Molly, looking for you now. Hopefully she's coming. Um, and there she
Yeah.
is. I did not even need to
Sorry.
text you. That's okay. That's okay.
Well, you were on something. You were on a different one, so I was listening to Trump give
Oh
his
no, you did
speech.
not. And can you
Uh,
report from the scene of your
y-
apartment?
of my apartment,
Of
of
your home? No,
seeing, yes, of from my weird angle on my phone.
no,
So I was
wonderful.
watching the this Trump tariff speech
Yeah.
on C-SPAN, and what's so interesting about him is he just seems so diminished, right? So when he talks,
Yes.
he
Yes.
seems exhausted.
What's going on with that? I brought this up the other day with, I can't remember who I brought it up with. I swear that is the case. And if anytime Joe Biden slurred or stumbled or got a name
Yeah.
mixed up, Fox, it'd be 12 hours of nothing but that kind of coverage. And Trump just seems like he's out of it.
He's just not, he's low energy. I mean,
Yeah.
what's interesting is I started reading this book by John Allen and
Oh,
Not Annie Carney, Amy
Amy
Parnas.
Parnes. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Amy Parnas, about how Biden not being up to the job.
yeah.
Okay, sure. I mean,
This just in.
right, yeah, exactly. But the thing is with Trump, like, it is such. I mean, it was. I mean, look, Biden was not the Biden he had been 4 years ago,
Right.
but Trump is not the Trump he was 8 years ago. I mean,
No,
my
that's the
God,
thing. You can't be on Fox
right?
6 months ago and complain about Joe Biden. He's lost a step, or look at him fall on his bicycle, or he's doing this, and then 6 months later pretend like there's nothing happening with Donald Trump. And when he's down at Mar-a-Lago,
Yeah,
he's taking pictures. Who was it with Tom Cotton the other day? And the makeup is just like I've been
it's
describing it as,
craziness.
when I look at my shoes that I'm going to buy, I can pick British tan, black, brown. It's British. I think it's British tan. I think that's the shade.
That's the tan. Yes.
That's I
Well,
think that's what it is.
at
I
least, yeah. I mean, no, the guy, I mean, he clearly thinks, and I mean, there's reporting that he leaves when he gets makeup done, he just leaves while they're working on it because he has such a short attention span. I mean, the thing that's, I feel like, if we're going to talk about a top line here, it's that um tariffs are wildly inflationary.
yes,
We are in a period of real inflation where we're trying to get out of it. There is a real likely scenario, and I actually asked Andrew Ross Sorkin about this today
mhm,
on Morning Joe, which is like, we're set up for a stagflation situation. I mean, we are just sleepwalking into stagflation, um which is what happens with stagflation, means that you go into a recession, but because you still have inflation, things are more expensive. So in a
yeah,
normal recession, things would be cheaper, but when you are in stagflation, you have
you're double hosed.
inflation, right?
Yeah.
And what I also think is interesting about Trump right now when he's giving this speech is he cannot stop defining the word reciprocal.
Why does
He
he? Why is he mad at these other countries? Is it sort of like New York high society? He's just working through his. He's just pissed off
grudges.
at certain people. He's working through his grudges. He was pissed off at some people in New York, so he's got to go after them. He's pissed off at the lawyers in D.C. So, and now he's pissed off at Emmanuel Macron. I mean, Emmanuel Macron, didn't he invite him to Notre Dame and all this shit? Like, give me a break. What the hell?
Deborah Messing is going to end up in Gitmo. Like, that's where this is going.
No, I
Deborah
love her.
Messing, no, but he loves her too, and she never would go out with him. Remember this whole story. So she's going to be in one of those prisons with the guys and the many, with the shaved heads. No, I'm just kidding. Deborah Messing, you're safe. Don't worry.
We will
But
protect Deborah Messing at all
yes, we will
costs, as the
protect
kids
a
say.
national treasure, Deborah
Yeah.
Messing. But I mean, he gets stuck on these people, and because it's a cult and not a real administration, they just let him do whatever he
Well,
wants.
and I didn't want to get too caught up in the tariff thing, but like all the bros out there who voted for him in the last election. I don't know if you heard this, but on CNBC they're reporting that the administration will implement a 25% tariff on all imported canned beers. That's expected to hit Constellation brands and beers like Corona and Modelo. Now, Corona usually comes in a bottle, comes with a lime. Thank you very much. But
Yeah, I was just thinking
Modelo, a
about
lot
that.
of these frat bros, they like those cans of Modelo. And
Man,
back to
you
Milwaukee's
voted for
best
him.
for you.
That's right. You voted for him. I mean, wine, right? Is he going to do what tariffs on wine? He's going to do. Look, the whole
Yeah,
point here is that you made a completely nonsensical human being president.
yeah,
And now we, just like with the first admin, we have to live with the consequences. And I mean,
yes.
he's more unhinged. There is no Mattis, there's no Kelly, there's no one there to say
There's
you
none of
can't
them.
do this, right? It's illegal. All you have are people sort of exploiting his worst instincts. So it's a Stephen Miller and it's, a
The bad
crew.
people. Elon Musk. I mean, but
Elon
here's the
Musk.
thing. I want to ask you about this, Molly, because I'm curious what your take is. He's apparently Trump has told his inner circle, according to Politico, including members of his cabinet, that Elon Musk will be stepping back in the coming weeks from his current role as governing partner. I talked
Yes,
to a Trump
governing partner. Can you imagine?
shadow
Oh,
president.
can
Yeah,
you imagine if Obama was like, I'm bringing George Soros in, you guys,
I know it's
just
so true.
he's going to be co-president. He's very rich, so we have to do it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that cheese that is on Elon Musk's head, it's just melting ever so slowly,
Yeah.
like a bad Simpsons cartoon. But to me, this was totally predictable. And yet here we are. I mean, the Wisconsin race, they called it pretty darn early. I mean,
Yeah, an hour
that was
after
that
the
was
polls
not
closed.
close at all.
But so look, I am hesitant to embrace anything that Trump says
That's a good point.
because
Yes.
we don't know. But clearly, eventually, that's what's going to happen, right? Because
Yeah.
those unfavorables, Elon Musk's unfavorable numbers are wild. I mean, this guy's not popular. And
Yeah.
again, I want to point out, I feel like we don't talk about this enough. There is a reason that very, very rich people have done philanthropy. It's
Yes.
not because they're such good people, though some of them are. It's mostly because they know that being very, very rich makes them somewhat unpopular. And
Yeah.
so doing things like giving money to poor kids is a way to sort of, mitigate some of that. So
Yeah.
what you have Elon Musk, who is like, I'm just going to take stuff away from poor kids. Like, I'm going to try that. Cancer research, I'm not going to, give all this money to do a hospital. I'm going to
Yeah.
take all this money away from hospitals. And like, that has never worked throughout history. That play has never made people like
It
you.
doesn't work. It does not work. I mean, and Eric Swalwell was just telling this awful story about this man who came up to him and said that his daughter has 40 seizures a day, but because of this NIH program, it's down to one seizure a day, and now that program may be affected by these funding. I mean, this is like
Everything's going to be affected. Everything.
real people.
Childhood cancer. I mean, this is the joke. So during Trump's, it's not State of the Union because it was only 2 months into it, whatever it is, joint session, right, where he gave that speech and he had this kid who had brain cancer stand up.
Right.
And there was the whole thing, why won't Democrats stand for kids with cancer? Okay, that's what it's about, kids with cancer. Meanwhile, Elon Musk cutting funding for
Yeah.
kids with cancer. Like,
Yeah.
period, paragraph. And it's funny because it's like my one interaction with Elon Musk was I tweeted, why is the richest guy in the world cutting funding for cancer research? And he was like,
I
I am not. What the fuck
I
are you talking
saw
about?
that. Yeah.
Right. Means that totally doing it, just completely doing it. NIH grants are, and it's so funny because it's like one of the things with Elon is that he doesn't know how the federal government works. So at
Does not
every
know.
point he's like learning on the fly. So he'll be like, we just cut these NIH grants because, indirect grants, what does that even mean? Because the man doesn't know scientific grant writing.
Well, and he was trying to weigh in on the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. I don't know if you saw that soundbite or heard that soundbite. He makes these comments, and he's speaking in this very pedestrian way and saying, well, judges should not be politicians, and they're like
Right.
politicians in robes and stuff. And he just sounds like some guy in a bar stool who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Honestly, just does not
Yeah.
know what he's talking about. And to me, it's like, you know, why do we have to listen to this? I don't go down to SpaceX and say, I guess you just light a fuse and the rocket goes up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I
Yeah.
would sound like an ass if I went to SpaceX and try to talk rockets with these people. So, what the hell is it? Get them out of here.
He's bad at governing. I mean, the one thing I will say that has worked for Trump is that he's sucked up a lot of the oxygen.
Yeah,
So Trump is probably not as unpopular as he would be. I mean, Elon is a very good fall guy.
that's true.
And that
That's
is,
true.
and
And
that's
they lie to the
real.
press today. They lie to the press today and say, well, Elon Musk's days are numbered. And then tomorrow, I mean, he'll get
Right.
cough up another 50 million and maybe
I mean
everything.
that is the like fundamental problem, and what we saw with the CR 2 weeks ago, right? The continuing resolution to fund the government
Yeah,
is that, well, Mike Johnson can't whip votes because he cannot do math. You know who can whip votes really well? The richest man in the world, because he just
yeah.
goes around and is like, you want me to fund you? I'll fund you.
That's a good
So,
point. Yeah,
you
I
know,
I don't think we've completely pushed him out of our system just yet.
no.
What do you think about? I saw you weighing in on social media about these migrants who are being disappeared, these
Yes.
students who
Yes.
are being disappeared. We live in a
Grad
country
students.
now where we disappear people.
So, okay,
Is
so
that a
this is
overwrought blanket thing? It
No, it's
feels,
really fucking bad. And like, let
yeah,
me tell you, it's not overreacting. When they
yeah,
start disappearing people, that we should be overreacting through the fucking roof. Okay. Like,
yeah.
not good. And I
The
say this
tough student. Yeah,
as a great they've
yeah.
done it to a couple people. A tough student, there's a
Hmm.
Columbia student where there's video of him, his wife. They come, look, you can be a Zionist, you can believe
Sure.
in, you can not agree with these people politically. I happen to be more squishy than that, but you can say that even if you don't disagree, even if you think everything they say is wrong, they should not be disappeared by the federal government. Like,
Yeah,
no, not okay. And as the granddaughter of a communist, Howard Fast, who was jailed by his government, it does
yeah,
not, you know, this is not, this leads nowhere good. They're doing this to grad students because they don't have this, these grad students are on student visas, so they don't have the same rights
right.
as the rest of us. But this is a hop, step, and a jump to like, I didn't like that op-ed you wrote, Molly. We're gonna have to cut, you're gonna have to come in and
You're
do
gonna have to
some
come
work.
with us,
Right. And
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
need
I
to
think
talk to you for a few hours.
so what I would say is you have these this is not okay. It should not be okay. People should be screaming about this from the rooftops. They should
Yeah,
not be allowed to take people and put them in Louisiana detention centers. The
yeah,
courts, by the way, none of this is legal, right? So the
yeah.
courts are going to undo all of
If
this.
the courts are weighing in and the judges are saying you can't do this, you can't do it.
You just can't. But
Yeah,
this administration is really post constitutional, as Russ Vaughn from the Heritage Foundation says, post constitutional. So
yeah.
that is why they will do things that are illegal because they think they are beyond the Constitution. There's not going to be so much that we can do on that right now, though we will be able to show them at the ballot box that the
Yeah,
American people do not like post constitutionalism. And when and if Democrats get back into power, which they need to in order for us to stay out of Gitmo, we're going to need a new plan, right? We're going to need
yeah.
Democrats who do things like make post, the same kind of laws, the anti corruption laws post Nixon times a million. We're going to need
Well,
real
absolutely.
litigation,
I mean,
legislation.
I've been thinking, we need like another constitutional convention in this country. I mean, I've been talking about this a little bit here and there. I think we need term limits for Supreme Court justices. I think we need maybe some clarity on this whole third term thing. I
It's
mean,
not, there's no clarity. It's not okay. You can't do a third
you
term.
you can't do it.
It's not going. Yeah.
Can
There's
we
no, and
put that in there? I mean, like, is there a way we can put in parentheses, this means you, Donald Trump? Because I do worry he's going to push this. And I think some
he's going
people
to
are wish
try.
he's going to
He's
try.
going
And
to
I think some
try.
people are wish casting and thinking, oh, he's just trying to own the libs and he's trying to distract us.
You just have to
Baloney.
assume at every point that Donald Trump is going to do the most craven and illegal thing possible.
Yes.
And then you're in good shape, right? You just assume he's going to
Yeah.
try to do a third term. He's going to try to not accept the election results. He's going to try. Fine, he'll try, but
Yeah.
we have elected people who are going to prevent him from doing that, and that is their job. And they need to know that the American people will. And I've been talking to experts in authoritarianism on my podcast,
Yeah.
Fast Politics. Get it wherever your podcasts are.
It's the best.
Sorry, little plug there.
We got to work in the
Um,
plug.
we got a
Can we
plug.
talk about your book too? I want to talk about your book too, but
But the book
if and
doesn't
when
come
we
out
can
till
do it.
June.
Oh, okay,
So
we'll
the
do it then. We'll do it
podcast you
then.
can download now. I'll be back for the book.
Okay, we'll do the book later.
Yeah, okay, good. But uh really seeing we need, so all these experts in authoritarianism I talk to, they say things like get out in the streets, do that filibuster. For example, the filibuster that Cory Booker did yesterday, 25 hours and 18 minutes, that is really important. And like there are
Mm.
cynical people who will say, no, it doesn't move the needle, it's not that important. No, that's wrong. It
Everybody
is
was talking about it.
it's millions of people saw it. Number one, he transmitted the very important message that none of this is normal, that none of
Exactly.
this is okay, that Democrats will, in fact, hold power to account. I mean, this was very good.
Yeah.
And also, he replaced a filibuster that had been an anti civil rights filibuster by one of the sort of most racist and anti civil rights senators ever, Strom Thurmond. So
Of course.
good for Cory Booker.
Yeah, that was a good twofer. And I love I mean, we've had an optimistic theme today. Mallory McMorrow, I think that's the wave she's kind of riding on. Eric Swalwell is also feeling
Yeah.
very positive. I feel like this is the most positive Molly Jong-Fast has sounded in a very long time. But I do want to end on something that is, or
You
get
know,
close to ending on something.
it's
Go ahead.
important to say, like, Jim and I are actually friends, so we have meals together. So he has really seen me at my absolute, like, we're all
So
yes, we're,
well, we're really down in the dumps and
yeah.
not feeling so hot about things. I did see a report that says that Jeff Bezos wants to buy TikTok or Amazon wants to buy TikTok. I don't know. Are they still the same thing? I mean, like that worries me. This big media getting bigger and bigger and these big tech companies getting bigger and bigger doesn't
There's
end well.
so there's so much to worry about, Jim. Like, why are
Maybe
you
I shouldn't worry about that.
focusing?
I
Right. I
don't know
mean,
because my son's on TikTok
Zuckerberg.
all the time, and I just like it just drives me nuts, and I don't want it to become even more addictive. Like
Well,
Amazon has figured out how to make our phones even more addictive, and so has TikTok. Putting that together freaks me out. But I guess
the good news is that the Chinese government is still much, much, much better at algorithms than Amazon. So
yeah,
likely if they sell to Amazon, they won't, the whole thing is they don't want Americans getting a hold of the algorithm. So the good news is that probably
maybe
if
they won't.
Bezos
Okay,
buys
all
it, it
right.
won't be as good.
All right.
That's all I can
Well,
think.
and Zuckerberg's at the White House today. Maybe he's auditioning for Elon Musk's job. Is that what's
Right.
happening
I
there? I
mean, I
The
don't
oligarchs they had it good there for a while. They were all at the inauguration and they were doing their
they
thing
were
with little
they were
salutes and stuff
Yes, it's called a straight-armed hand gesture.
and oddly inappropriate outfits. I won't go mention any names, but
Yes.
the oligarchs they're not looking so oligarchy
Yeah, well, what I think
right
is
now.
important is that the people don't like this,
They
and
don't
they
like it.
need to show. We're seeing this with the Tesla stock. People don't like this authoritarianism. They don't
Yeah,
like it. They won't buy his cars. They won't buy your products. If you are
yeah.
Amazon and you want to sell more crap, you need to not embrace fascism or authoritarianism, I think
Right.
is more accurate.
Yeah.
So you guys have a lot more power than you think. And what we're seeing with these protests and people getting off Twitter and these kind of things, there is real buying power. I mean, a great
Mm.
example is the Rev, Al Sharpton, has done a bunch of different protests for these anti-DEI, which really means pro-racism, right? If you're
Yeah,
anti-racism, you're pro-racism, okay? And
exactly.
so, but it's a great example. The Rev has come out against a bunch of these places, and consumers aren't going.
Yeah,
Target saw a drop. I mean, the reason
people power.
corporations didn't get involved in politics was because they were worried about stuff like this. Show them that they're wrong. Show them
Yeah.
that there are consequences for consorting with people who are
And you're absolutely right.
authoritarians.
People are able to figure out, okay, these are the companies that are keeping the DEI. I'm going to use those companies. I'm going to go to those places.
Yeah,
I mean, there are car companies offering $4,000 if you trade in your Tesla. I mean, it's like Jurassic Park. Nature
yeah.
finds a way.
That's my Jurassic Park. That should be our top line. Capitalism finds a way.
Capitalism finds a, which is in a sad way, very sad. But maybe we're going to
It's
take the
where we
glass
are.
half full today.
That's right.
Everybody's optimistic today. I'm just going to go with it. Molly, it's
I'll
great
take
to
it.
see you. Thank you for doing it as always. And we will plug the book later. Is that the deal? We'll
Yes,
do that later.
June. The book comes out in June. It's called How to Lose Your Mother. It's a memoir about what happens when the bottom falls out, but I plan to endlessly plug it, and I feel like Jim is going to have me back. He better.
Absolutely. And tell your PR person we in no way interrupted your book rollout in any way, shape, or form. We're
No
just two
way.
friends talking about
That's
things. And we
right.
plugged your podcast.
Exactly.
And I don't want
That's
anybody to get
right.
mad. I did a book once and they're like, protect the rollout at all
Yes.
costs. And we're
No,
not
no.
messing with that.
No. Yes, none of that.
Um, well, great to see you. Let's do breakfast soon or what all
Yes,
the
I'm
things that
coming
we
to
do.
DC during
Good.
we'll be there in that last week of April. So,
Awesome. Okay.
all
Good to
right.
see you,
Thanks,
Molly.
Jim.
Take care.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye. Well, see, I try to get Molly into a bad mood there and talk about Jeff Bezos, and she just wasn't having it because it's that kind of a day. Wednesdays are usually when we're not that optimistic, but it is, and I've been talking about this on this program, what I've been calling the Great American Pushback. I mention it from time to time. And some of you may have been tempted out there to say, oh, Jim, you're so pie in the sky, this airy fairy rhetoric of yours. This is not, you're not living in a fairy tale, Jim. And as it turns out, there was reason to be optimistic. There's always reason to be optimistic when we believe in one another, when we believe in what we have here in this country, which is the ability to change course, the ability to push back, the ability to say no, this far, no farther. And I think that's what we have been seeing in the last 24 hours. I think what we saw in Wisconsin was a resounding message from the voters, this far and no farther. We are going to push back on you. Elon Musk, you can spend $25 million here. You can spend $100 million in a small state Supreme Court race. It ain't going to work. The American people still have a say. And so I do think for all the dark clouds out there, for all the gloominess out there, as Cory Booker reminded all of us in his 25-hour speech, you can make a difference just by speaking out, just by using your voice, just by getting on a soapbox and spilling out your guts, spilling out your heart for 25 hours, as Cory Booker did so eloquently. I mean, I sit here and I talk for the last 5 minutes of my show or whatever, and I'm thinking to myself, is any of this making sense? He went on for 25 hours with no bathroom breaks. I mean, you gotta take your hat off to that. And something that Mallory McMorrow said earlier on in the program struck a chord with me, and that is, it's okay, is basically what she was saying, to be optimistic, to feel hope, to feel like we still have the ability to change course. And I've been seeing throughout this program, I'm just going to mention it because I'm going to try to talk about it later on this week. Folks are talking about how on is it Friday or Saturday? There's an April 5th, getting my days mixed up, day of action across the country, and people are going to be going out there in droves. And I think you're going to see on your newscasts all weekend long a lot of people coming out on Saturday saying, "Hands off." Hands off our democracy, hands off this country, and so on. And I do think what everybody is doing in each and every individual way is making a difference. So don't hold back, folks. I mean, you're just seeing proof positive in the last 24 hours that individual actions can make a difference and that getting off the sidelines can make a difference. You're just one person. Yes, you may say, I'm just one person. I have one voice. Say that to, tell that to Cory Booker. Tell that to the people of Wisconsin. To me, there is hope. There is a reason to be optimistic. There is a reason to keep believing in one another and keep believing in this country. I try to bring a little bit of that to this program every day, and I know all of you bring it too. So thank you for bringing it and keep on bringing it. But in the meantime, my thanks to Mallory McMorrow, who was gracious enough and kind enough to come on this program today as she's launching her race for the U.S. Senate. That is going to be an unbelievable battle ahead of her. My thanks to Congressman Eric Swalwell for making his maiden voyage on the Jim Acosta Show, hopefully one of many more to come. And of course, National Treasure Molly Jong-Fast. I always appreciate her coming on because you can just learn so much listening to Molly, and she just speaks in this amazing political poetry that that has made me a very good friend of hers in so many different ways. I really appreciate her friendship. I always appreciate when she comes on. In the meantime, thanks everybody for watching. Slight chance I may not be here tomorrow because I'm going to be doing a little traveling, but I'm going to try to be here on Friday. But if something pops up, I may pop up anyway. I'll keep you posted. But in the meantime, still reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta. Have a great week, everybody. Great talking to you. And thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.